The European Union has delayed its retaliatory tariffs on US exports. Again, it comes after Donald Trump wrote a letter to Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announcing his plans to impose 30% tariffs on EU imports from August 1. Joining us live now on this Monday morning, Peter Switzer, the founder of the Switzer Report. It's good to see you as always, Pete. So it's quite a dance going on here with the Europeans. Is the EU folding though?
Well, I guess the bottom line is, Donald Trump is not relenting, and he is putting the pressure on the EU to deliver. And if they don't deliver some kind of negotiations that pleases the US president, they will cop what Canada copped last week, namely an escalation in the tariffs.
The EU could hurt the US though. Am I right? With booze amongst a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah. Look, I think if the EU declares effectively a global trade war against the US, both sides will lose and global economic growth will be affected and the stock market will sell off. So, at a point like this, you really hope that Scaramucci's right about Trump and Taco is a really believable assessment of Donald Trump, that he always chickens out. But at the moment, I think he's actually responding to that and playing a tough guy's game. But it's okay if you do it with Brazil and Canada. You try doing it with the EU in particular, then I think the stock market will actually go seriously down. And so this is a really important play for this week, Pete.
Okay, but the US has got some pretty decent concessions out of Europe in recent weeks, with notably some European nations jacking up their military spend. Getting back to that point, it is all part of, President Trump's tactic. You come in hard and then you work things out a little later on. They seem to work out for everybody.
Yeah. Look, as I say, the EU also doesn't want a global economic collapse. They don't want the stock markets to come off the boil and head south. But the bottom line is, dealing with Donald Trump and his team is really tricky, as we've here in Australia seen over the weekend with demands that we make a declaration where we would stand if China invaded Taiwan. In the case of Brazil, Donald Trump's mate, the former president of Brazil, he wants a fair treatment. So up comes a 50% tariff. These sort of curveballs are really starting to unsettle the market. I think this belief is, and by the way, a lot of these tariffs were going up and the market kept rising. It was last week when even the blanket tariffs are now going from 10 to 15 or 20%. All these things are escalating uncertainty, and that's why Wall Street is showing uncertainty. And I think it's going to be a pretty tough week for the stock market until something is revealed to give more clarity and transparency.
Interesting. All right, so what are the data drops to look out for this week, Pete?
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the letters of Donald Trump, this would be a really important week. Like China comes out on Tuesday with economic growth, really important for BHP, Rio share price, and they've started to do well on the basis that China's economy is looking a little bit better than expected. Here in Australia, we've got unemployment out on Thursday. Also on Tuesday, US CPI, really important. And there's between Wednesday and Friday, Pete, there's a raft of economic data which will tell us how the US economy is going since the introduction of tariffs. All of this would be really important, particularly for what the Federal Reserve would do with interest rates if it wasn't for those damn letters of Donald Trump.
Okay, we'll leave it there, Pete.